Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you find yourself watching this video. I pray that you are blessed. Welcome back to Jesus in the Center. My name is Ebony, and today we will be going over day 69 and 70 of our Bible in a Year reading plan, which are our catch-up days. So as you guys know, this week we wrapped up the book of Judges, we finished the book of Ruth, and we read 1 Samuel's chapters 1 through 14. So we have covered a lot of information this week. So at the end of Judges, we saw the death of Samson. We also saw the war between the Israelites and the Benjamites because of the great sin that they committed against the Levite and his concubine. So we see that war happening at the end of Judges. And then we go from the book of Judges to the book of Ruth. And the book of Ruth is a really sweet story of God's love and his compassion and his tenderness for being expressed in a story of the love and compassion of a daughter-in-law to her mother-in-law, more specifically of Ruth to her mother-in-law Naomi, and how her love for her caused her to leave her people and follow Naomi to Israel, where God took care of them. He provided for them. Ruth eventually meets Boaz. Boaz and Ruth get married because Boaz is a kinsman redeemer for their family. And so Boaz ends up marrying Ruth. But through this, we see a demonstration of, the love of God, the kindness of God, the sacrificial love of someone else for somebody else, which reminds us of God's sacrificial love for us, because Ruth was not an Israelite. She was a Moabite woman, so technically she was a foreigner residing in Israel, and the Lord had already told them that they were to treat residential foreigners with respect. So it just kind of shows God's love working through people. The Lord is not mentioned as much in the book of Ruth as he is in the other books of the Bible that we've read, but we can still see God's providence working through this story. So because of Ruth's love and her faithfulness to her mother Naomi, she ends up in the ancestral line of one of Israel's greatest kings, King David. All right, and then once we leave the book of Ruth, we begin the book of 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel picks up where the book of Judges leaves off. We find a priest named Eli. Eli is pretty much the priest of the temple. He is the one that the word of God comes through. But at this point in time, the word of God was really, really rare. At this point, he wasn't really speaking through his prophets. And so there is a man that comes yearly to do his yearly sacrifice. And he has two wives. His wife, Hannah, has not had children. His other wife has had multiple children, and the other wife makes fun of Hannah because she is childless. So Hannah is found in the temple by Eli crying out to God. He accuses her of being an alcoholic and being drunk in the temple, but she's really not. She's just really pouring out her heart to God, but all he sees is her mouth moving and not hearing any words from her mouth. So he assumes that she is drunk in the house of the Lord. But she cries out to God for a son. And she says, God, if you give me this son, I will dedicate him back to you. And so God grants her prayer. And that is when Samuel is born. And when Samuel is old enough to come serve in the temple after he's weaned from his mother, she brings him and she leaves him at the temple, and he becomes Eli's assistant. And so Samuel is the last judge of Israel. And so he judges Israel for a long time until they ask for a king. And the first king that is anointed is Saul from the tribe of Benjamin. And so up until this point, we've read up into chapter 14 about Saul's conquests. And we've also read about Saul's mistake that he made in sacrificing to God without the prophet Samuel being there, so he did not follow the Lord's instructions. And because he did not follow the Lord's instructions, his kingdom is not established. So Saul, because of his disobedience, does not end up having a dynasty that will rule over the people of Israel. So now that we've kind of done our recap of what we've read and what's happened so far, yes, I know it's a lot. I did want to go over one of the reflection questions with you guys that can be found linked in the discussion section of the video. So the discussion question that I wanted to go over with you guys was from day 66, where we read Ruth chapter 4 through 1 Samuel. And the question says, reflect on Eli's failure as a father in 1 Samuel 2 through 4. How can you learn from Eli's mistakes and strive to be a godly parent or mentor to those entrusted to your care? And as a parent, this reflection question really stood out to me, because when we read that section of 1 Samuel, we see Eli. He's faithful. He does what the Lord tells him to do, but his sons are not. They're wicked. They're disrespecting the Lord's sacrifice by going in and demanding that the people that are coming to sacrifice give them portions of the meat to be roasted, when they're supposed to boil it first. And then, God had set out in the book of the law what portions were supposed to be for the priests, but they were going in, they were disrespecting the Lord's offerings, they were sleeping with the women that served in the temple. So these were some really corrupt young men. And we see in the Bible that Samuel goes in and he asks his son, he's like, why are y'all doing these things? You know that this isn't pleasing to the Lord, this is dishonorable to the Lord, and you shouldn't be doing this. So it's not that Eli doesn't say anything. He goes and he says something, but he doesn't discipline his sons. The only thing that he does is he goes and he says something to them about it. And, and technically, because of the things that they did, they should have been removed from the priesthood. And so we as parents, if you don't have children, maybe you're mentoring somebody, maybe you're mentoring some young man, some young lady, at your job or at work. We need to be, one, good examples of what it is to be men and women of God. Two, we need to make sure that when we see our children walking down the path of unrighteousness, walking down the path of sin, we need to say something to them. And three, we need to remind them of the word of God. Obviously, if they're our children, then we can discipline them. Then we, as the parents, we are responsible for disciplining our children when they don't do right, when they're going against God. We need to sit them down and we need to talk to them and say, hey, you know that in this house we love and we serve the Lord. Just like Joshua said, choose this day whom you're going to serve. As for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And we need to talk to our children, and we need to not just discuss why things are wrong from a cultural perspective, but why they're also wrong according to the word of God. And that will help our children stay on the right path. As we can see from Eli, he was a righteous man. He did follow God. And so even as parents, we can live a righteous and holy life, and our children can still go out and do wicked things. But that doesn't mean that we sit by silently and just let them go about their wickedness and their evil ways. We as parents, we still need to speak up, and we still need to be able to lead and guide them, even if they don't follow our decisions. So, all right, so now that we've done our reflection question, let's look forward into what we're going to be reading next week. We are going to finish up the book of 1 Samuel, and we're also going to start 2 Samuel. So in 1 Samuel, we'll see what happens through the rest of the reign of Saul. We'll see David being introduced as a young boy and the many exploits that David did, the conflict between David and Saul, the relationship between David and Saul's son Jonathan. And then in 2 Samuel 2, we will see the begin of David's reign. So I am looking forward to reading the rest of Samuel. David is another one of my favorite people from the Bible, so I am looking forward to rereading his story and his life and all the things that he did. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope you're looking forward to that as well. As always, on these catch-up days, if you have not read all of the other readings, don't worry. That's what these 2 days are for. Go back, watch any videos that you've missed. If you haven't done the reflection questions, or you would like to take a look at the reflection questions and do some of them, you can find them linked down in the discussion section of the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so that you can get the notifications for day 71 of our Bible in a Year reading plan. All right, everyone, have a blessed day. Bye.